everyone. My name is Miles, and you're tuning in at X-Raised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming back a familiar face, someone who has been on quite the transformative journey herself and whose expertise and insights left such an impact that we just had to invite her again. Now, if you've been following along, you'll remember I had the pleasure of speaking with her twice before. First, about her personal journey, her powerful personal journey from addiction, then about Your Sober Sweet Spot podcast and the science-backed holistic approach she takes to recovery. And because she never stops breaking barriers, she's here to talk about something that sneaks into all our lives, often disguised as a harmless craving, sugar addiction.
Mhm.
And I'm guilty. Yes, that, that sweet little pick me up might actually be playing a bigger role, not only in our health, but also in productivity and even emotional well being than we realize. So let's
Yeah.
take this conversation even further with award winning recovery consultant, a podcast host, and a sought after speaker, Dr. Olabunmi Abuaba. Hey, Dr.
Oh, thanks very
Olabunmi.
much. Thank you, Miles. Thanks for having me back on.
No, thank you for being here and joining me again. I'm happy to have you back here on the show because you're one of the sweetest guests we've ever hosted. And,
Oh,
that is our topic today about
it
that
does.
sweet, innocent looking ingredient that might just be a
Mm,
silent saboteur to our health and professional success. And you've shared your powerful journey with us, Dr. Olubunmi, in addiction recovery before, but today we're tackling something different, which is, as I've said earlier, sugar addiction. What inspired
yeah.
you to explore the impact of sugar on mental health and addiction recovery?
Well, what inspired me, first of all, was my own journey. So, as if anyone's listening to the previous video cast podcast, my journey was with alcohol dependency. As
Uh-huh.
soon as I stopped drinking, I started to have lots and lots of sugar. I started to eat loads of sugar.
Uh-huh.
Now, it was a very insidious, it was very slow, but I started to go towards the donuts, go towards the sugary cakes.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, yeah, I'm not drinking. That's fine. It's okay. Everything's good. But then I started to have the same feelings around sugar as I did exactly with alcohol. I started to obsess about it, that I had to have my cake at 3 o'clock. I had to have something to help me feel better. So I was
Yeah.
always going to like the really sugary things. So your normal whole foods, that didn't have that effect. But I was going towards the things that made me feel better, change the way I felt. And it was exactly the way I felt with alcohol. I'm going to have a drink to make me feel better. And to the point where I was overindulging in sugar. And I
Mhm.
started to realize I was doing exactly the same thing. It was like, wow,
Over and
this is
over.
interesting. And I wanted to be very, very careful about my health because if I overdid it and stopped the sugar, I may go back to the alcohol. So this is
Uh-huh.
about cross addiction. So many people experience this if they have an alcohol addiction, they may go into sugar, and then from sugar back to alcohol. So it's about me taking care of me and being aware of my patterns. And it's a there's a range of people with cravings for sugar. But it's just important to kind of realize that it can lead you down the slippery path mentally and emotionally. So that's why I became a food addiction counselor, helping people. And when I kind of looked back in my own life, when I was younger, before the alcohol took hold, when I was like 7, 8, 9, it was always the sugar. So I was back to the sugar again. So I just realized I had this predilection for sugar, sugary things, and it had come back after I'd stopped drinking. So it's to help really raise awareness of, is it affecting you mentally? Is it affecting you obviously physically? Because people can have diabetes and heart problems and arthritis with too much sugar. But really, I'm talking about the mental and emotional effects that sugar can have on somebody, and they may not even
Mhm.
know about it.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating, especially because most people don't really even consider sugar an addiction and let alone a roadblock to recovery, Dr. Aulabunmi. And You're right. Taking care of ourselves by being aware of the food we're taking, we're actually taking, feeding our body, and what we're doing to our health. So let's break it down, especially for someone like me who has a sweet tooth. It makes me curious, how does sugar addiction compare to substance addiction on a scientific level? What's really happening in our brains?
So let me go back to the origins of sugar.
Uh-huh.
Let me go back to the origins of sugar. So if you think about alcohol and something like the drug called heroin, they're
Uh-huh.
all from natural products. So they're all originally natural. So the poppy was the original flower. People have
Okay.
taken the essence, processed it, and it's become heroin. Alcohol was from the grape. The grapes are then
Yeah.
fermented, then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes wine. And it's the same with sugar, that it's come from the sugar cane
Uh-huh.
and then it's processed to become white sugar, processed sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the more processed a substance is, the quicker it goes through our body.
Yeah.
So the more processed, as I said, alcohol, you get intoxicated quickly. You wouldn't get intoxicated with the grape. So
Mm-hmm.
because it's been processed and fermented, and it's the same with heroin, unfortunately, when it's processed from the beautiful flower, the poppy, which we love looking at, that can become a problem. And it's the same with sugar, and it goes through the blood-brain barrier very quickly. So that anything that's processed, so cigarettes, nicotine, they all go through what we call the blood-brain barrier very quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
our brains kind of acknowledge it very, very quickly. So we have what we call the reward system of our brain, and that is okay. The reward system takes effect when you've had a good meal, for instance, a nice meal, lovely, or you've gone to a party and you enjoyed yourself and you had fun with your friends, or you've gone for a nice walk and in the sunshine in nature, and that kind of raises our dopamine levels to a nice level, and you feel good. Or if you've gone to yoga or something like that. But
Right.
then the brain is supercharged with when you have sugar, there's the reward system becomes overactivated. It's on supercharged, and
Uh-huh.
the dopamine levels go really sky high. So they really, really go up. So rather than a gentle dopamine raise, it becomes this huge spike of dopamine. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what sugar does. That's what alcohol does. And that's what drugs do. They kind of spike your dopamine levels. And then your brain starts to register it. Oh, that felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. And maybe, yeah, maybe I'm going to try that again. So you go from this liking something, and if you're doing it repeatedly, so I'm going to go for that cake again, I'm going to have that pancake with lots of sugar and chocolate on it, then your brain's starting to go towards that because it gives it a reward. It feels good. Huge doses of dopamine and serotonin, that kind of cozy feel, comfortable feeling. So that's what the brain does with sugar. And if you're doing
Yeah.
it repeatedly, the brain starts to like it, and then it wants it, and then it needs it.
Yeah.
And then the person will want to have that dopamine spike constantly, because without that dopamine spike, they feel a little bit down. They don't
Mm-hmm.
feel quite as lively. And
Yeah.
so they automatically keep going for that. So people don't realize that maybe they're going to go for their favorite chocolate regularly because they want that spike. But for some people, it's chronic and it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everyone's chasing that dopamine at the moment, whether
Mm.
it's with work or whether it's with alcohol, whether it's with gambling, and people are doing it with sugar. But many people don't realize that that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking about more than just a sugar rush. This is something that can derail careers, mental health, our everyday
Yes.
task, and overall well-being. And let's just
Yeah.
say someone is unknowingly addicted to sugar. What are the biggest red
hmm
flags, Dr. Olabunmi? And while we're at it, how can this show up in their daily life or even their business habits?
It can show up as, for instance, low mood. So they've had their sugar, they've eaten something, they've had a high dopamine spike, And at that time, they feel really good. Maybe they can get their work done. They feel happy. Then all of a sudden, the dopamine goes down. Then they start to kind of feel
Acceptable.
lethargic. Yeah, the kind of bit feel like their mood is low. They feel cranky or irritable. Um, in many cases, when it's chronic, people start to feel a lower self-esteem, a lower self-worth if it's a chronic feeling, um, like fatigue, brain fog. So if you're working, brain fog can be a real problem for productivity, you achieving your deadlines, your
Mhm.
memory starts to, be a bit kind of shaky. So
Mhm.
again, it's just highlighting what the effects of sugar can do. And some people don't realize this. So this is a really important step for someone to kind of go, oh gosh, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize it could be sugar, and that I'm constantly having something that's making me react this way and then
Uh-huh.
feel very down. And
Yeah.
some people feel kind of anxious, and in some respects, people do get panic attacks because they've had so much sugar in their diet
Right.
that once it becomes depleted, they have these panic attacks. They feel angry maybe and irritable, and they don't know
Mhm.
what it is.
The extreme change in the mood.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not just talking about the physicality of too much sugar, like obesity, type
Mhm.
2 diabetes, arthritis, heart disease. We're talking about the mental and emotional impact it can really have.
Mhm.
And I just think it's very important that kind of Mental Health UK looked at various statistics, and it said that 1 in 4 people are suffering from a mental health issue, and they report
Mhm.
that in the year, and that 1 in 6 people are reporting every week that they have anxiety or panic attacks. So when you think of 1 in 6 people, that's quite a lot. And many might not
Yeah.
realize that it's probably what they're eating. So that's the first thing I ask, a client is, first of all, what are you eating? What's your diet like? And it sounds, people kind of look and think, what? But it's, if we can find out if it's too much sugar, we can try and get that person onto, we'll talk about that in a minute, but into kind of a better nutrition so that their blood sugars are stabilized and that they
Mhm.
feel better in themselves, to carry on the day. And many people, as a result of maybe too much sugar, may start binging and may start binge eating because ultra processed foods have sugar in them. So when we have too much sugar in our blood, with the blood sugars high, the brain cannot process emotions as well as it could.
Mhm.
So people use foods with sugar to dumb down emotions. We talk about people stuffing their emotions by
Uh-huh.
eating these particular foods. So we get the eating disorders, disordered eating issues. So
Mhm.
again, that could all start with just eating too much sugar in your diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Mm.
pretty a great number of people getting anxious and panic attacks. Sounds like sugar might just be, running a secret empire of destruction in people's lives, especially in their mental health. But the big question here is
Right.
how do we break free? What are the strategies for overcoming sugar addiction and creating a healthier lifestyle? I'm all ears.
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, sugar has all these side effects. So it might be fatigue, it might be bloating, diarrhea,
Mhm.
less focus, that kind of thing. So I think the most important thing is step one is awareness, is maybe have a food diary, like a food tracker, and just every day be very honest about what you're eating and write it down. Just write it down. And even that alone, people might be amazed um, of how much sugar's in their diet. So looking at those particular foods, they could be going to, say, a coffee shop and having a cappuccino or a latte, which has loads of sugar in it.
Yeah.
So these are the hidden sugars that we don't talk about. There's, several teaspoonfuls of sugar in lattes, frappuccinos, all of those things. So it's very deceptive. That's why I called it sweet deception. It can be very deceptive. So just to take a real inventory of what you're eating and, what is the sugar content of those foods. And then really having a little journal. How does it make you feel, kind of mentally, physically, spiritually, if you don't have these particular foods? If you
Mm-hmm.
stop eating that for the day, how are you
Yeah.
feeling? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Are you feeling cranky? Are you snapping at your kids, or um, not doing your work because you're just tired or you're not focused? So really getting that self-awareness going, I think that's just really, really important. And then I would talk about planning ahead. Start to plan, start to recognize that it is an issue. And if it's debilitating, it's stopping you doing the things that you really want to do, like, having spending quality time with your family because you're too
Uh,
tired because you've had a big sugar crash, or, not meeting your deadlines at work, or not going out for and playing sport because you'd rather be home and eating that, then I think it's just really time to take a look at all of that. But I think the most important thing really is to plan ahead and prepare. So find the foods that you like, whole foods, fruits, snacks, vegetables. The night before you go into work, plan, fruit boxes, vegetable boxes, just healthy whole foods. Be able to do that. Plan your evening meals so that oh gosh, I'm not going to dash off and get a burger and then an ice cream, that kind of thing, which is fine in moderation. But really plan your meals, and cook healthy meals that you can just have when you get home before you slip into, oh, I'm just going to have a quick fast foody snack or something. So really, it's just about planning, making sure that you're hydrated. When you're thoroughly hydrated, you're less likely to be hungry and then go for the wrong things. When you go shopping for food, make sure that you've eaten before you go shopping, because then your food's not going to all the snacks and things like that. Because when you're hungry, you want something quick and you think, oh, I'll have
uh,
this. So your food choices change as well. Make sure you eat between 3 to 5 hours, no longer intervals. After 5 hours, then you're going to go into overdrive, and then you wanting to eat, the wrong things. So all these things really, really make a difference. And as I said, it's all about, I think, really more than anything, self-awareness. And then we're talking about taking those physical breaks, taking a physical break when you start to feel, okay, I've eaten,
mhm.
I've hydrated, but I'm still, or then take that break, go for a walk, a 5-minute walk, for instance, or do 3 minutes of breath work or 2 minutes of stretching, just to break up that thought pattern. Start to do
Uh-huh.
things that are going to break that thought pattern. And for instance, have a playlist, of your favorite music or
Ah,
some
that's a good
recorded
one.
affirmations. Yeah, just things that are light and fun, and you know, contact a friend, call a friend, or text a friend. If you're feeling
Yeah.
like the urge to really have that sugar fix, talk to a friend, let your friends know, for instance. So find that support. Let your friends know that you're going to try and break this sugar habit. So have a support system, 3 to 5 friends that you can call up, or they can text you and say, how you doing? Just to break that cycle. Or what I would call the stop technique, STOP, and which is like, if you're about to have something and you just know, yeah, I just need to stop, then stop. Just take some time out, take some a few breaths, just
Uh-huh.
observing your body, what's going on. And I think this is about kind of your body brain connectivity. Just have a feeling of what's going on in your body. Why are you doing this? Are you about to go into a meeting and you're a bit stressed? You're meeting the director. So what can you have? What can you have instead? And make sure it's an apple or something. Just break that cycle and then just proceed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the breath work. Maybe speaking to somebody beforehand. Have little kind of like outlets before you sort of think,
Uh-huh.
yeah, pick up. And it's just to recognize, has it become a problem? Is it something that you can't do without? Are you obsessing about it? Does your behavior change when you don't have it? Does your behavior change when you do have it? And these are little tiny changes in your behavior that can make such a big difference. So
Mm-hmm.
many people out there really don't realize how much sugar can have an impact on them. And studies have also shown that it has an impact on PMT, perimenopause,
Yeah.
menopause, that there's more, what would I say, hot flashes if you're going through menopause, or panic attacks or anxiety. And at the moment, we are living in a very stressful, anxious world. So let's try and do something about it by looking at what we're eating, which is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And I think lots of mental health establishments really should be looking at what that person is eating and how much sugar, for instance, is in their diet.
Mm-hmm. And that's a game plan right there, Dr. Olubunmi. So
Yes, it is.
journal, be aware of what you eat, a concrete plan to prepare, emotional self-care, and of course, seek support. This isn't about just willpower, it's about strategy, self-awareness, setting yourself up for success.
Absolutely.
And as you said, seeking
Absolutely.
support from the right people. And I like your advice on
Exactly.
and I like your advice on eating before going grocery shopping.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Oh, I used
I
to do that. I used to like not eat anything and I'm like rushing off. And then you are going to go for the sugary things, even if
uh-huh,
mentally, you're going to put them in your basket, you think, I'll have them later, but you're kind of your guards down. So you're going to go for the things that are just, quick, fast, and easy and give you that temporary high. So it's
uh-huh.
good to go with a full stomach so you can make the right decisions and pick the right foods.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's true that you shouldn't wear a vanilla scented perfume when you're grocery shopping or shopping in general. I don't know if it's true.
I've never heard that, but I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, I just remembered. Let's see. Maybe in the next
That's
episode we
interesting.
can talk about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And
Love
as
it.
always, Dr. Olubunmi, this has been eye-opening. So before we wrap up, could you please tell our audience where can they find you and learn more about your work?
Okay, and so it's www.drolabumi.com.
Got that. Thank you so much. Well, I guess I've been asking
You're
already a
welcome.
lot, so let me wrap this up. Thank you, Dr. Olubunmi, for breaking down the
You're
sugar
welcome.
code, one insightful truth at a time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll always be happy talking to you, so it's a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you. If today's episode made you rethink that harmless candy stash in your desk drawer, well, we are welcome. Connect with Dr. Olubunmi for more on recovery, performance, or high performance living and holistic wellness. And as always, if you enjoyed today's show, share and subscribe to X Raised so we can update you as we feature top tier guests like Dr. Olubunmi and conversations that really matter. Thank you for tuning in. Catch us again next time. This has been your
Thank
host,
you.
Miles. Stay focused and inspired with X Raised.